Hey, we're now going to finish the story of Brenda. This chapter is entitled Days 5, 6, and 7. In the morning, there was no question of school. She ran to the kitchen, thrusting her keys at her mother, who looked up in amazement, the bread knife dripping marmalade. "Moll," she said, pulling her mother up from the chair. She went straight for the women's boutique to the colorful T-shirts. She stopped at the sign. She addressed it in a voice that turned the heads of the sales clerks. "Yellow!" She threw up her hands and faced the racks of clothes. "Yellow!" She led her mother to the home entertainment department in Sears. She trembled to see the walls of TV screens, all showing the same morning hostess biting into the same cherry turnover of the same guest pastry chef. A small group of shoppers was watching. She walked directly to the wall of screens, and for a moment seemed about to walk right through them. She stopped and stood before them for a full commercial break. When at last she turned around, she was smiling hugely, a smile her mother had not seen in years. She threw out her arms and proclaimed, "My name is Brenda. I was a really neat little kid. Once I dumped a plate of spaghetti on my own head, and my favorite color is yellow." One shopper applauded lightly, and the others moved on. Her mother could not speak. Page break. For the rest of the day and evening, and the next day and the next, there was no let-up. Some places they drove to, but for the most part, Brenda wanted to walk, or rather run, as she pushed her mother along like a housebound pup on a leash. She followed her daughter to the old neighborhood, to the gray clapboard house on Burnside Street, which they had moved from when Brenda was 6. She trailed along nervously as Brenda strode into the backyard and began pacing up and down the grass. Brenda crouched and moved branches, peering into the shadows of shrubbery as if searching for lost toys. She knelt before a newly bloomed daffodil. She rubbed its yellow petals between her fingers. She closed her eyes and brought the crinkled trumpet to the end of her nose and tickled herself and giggled. When a white-haired woman with a potholder came out, Brenda bounced right up to her and stuck out her hand. "Hi, I'm Brenda Foster, and I used to live here when I was a little girl. Did you know that there used to be a strawberry patch right here? And over there I buried a mouse with a popsicle cross on its grave." The white-haired woman switched the potholder so she could shake hands. She nodded and said, I see, and her uneasy smile relaxed as Brenda jabbered on. Following her young visitor about, the woman every so often glanced at Mrs. Foster with a bemused look as if to say, "What do you feed this daughter of yours?" It was around noon when Brenda smacked her forehead and said, "Oh man, I gotta go, see?" So she charged into the public library, fairly sprinting back to biography. Standing on a chair, she pulled the book from the top shelf, opened it to a blue bookmark, scanned several pages, pumped her fist, and reinserted the bookmark, let out a whoop, "Yes!" and charged back onto the street. This happened every couple of hours for the rest of the week. They went to the park, to the wading pool where Brenda's mother had taken her as a little girl. Mothers gawked and toddlers yelped in delight as Brenda plopped herself down and launched a splash party. They went downtown, stopping in every place of business, even law and insurance offices. "Hi, I'm Brenda. My favorite color is yellow." Strangers on the street, clerks behind counters. "Hi, I'm Brenda. My finger is double jointed. Look." After dinner, they strolled around the neighborhood. "Hi, hi." Brenda made eye contact with everything. She ran her fingertips over the polished marble of a building in town. She sniffed an automobile fender, tasted a blade of grass, listened to a black walnut shell, stared and stared at the sky. She felt and smelled and tasted and listened and looked and giggled. When she wasn't introducing herself to strangers, she was peppering her mother with questions. What? How? Who? And when she wasn't peppering questions, she was simply talking, jabbering, flinging words with newfound delight of a 2-year-old in a tub full of ping-pong balls. Always returning to the library, to the same book, to move back the blue bookmark, to whoop anew. On Saturday, Brenda's father said to her mother, "What's going on?" "I'm not sure," she answered. "When I find out, I'll tell you." She's running you through the ringer. You look like a dish rag. That I know. But are you okay? She touched his hand. Very okay. Better than I look. And her? He crooked a finger around one of his. She smiled uncertainly. Ask me tomorrow night, sometime after 7. So, remember what's happening after 7? Page break. Giggling, jabbering, whooping, unflagging, unstoppable. Brenda? Could it be true? Her daughter returning after all these years? Is this what happens? This avalanche when a life suspended catches up all at once? So accustomed to mourning, Brenda's mother hardly knew how to rejoice. But would it last? What exactly was this great TV turnoff this tubeless week? Was it a new horizon truly, or a spell, a bewitching? What would happen come Sunday evening at 7? She feared trickery. Magic worked just as easily can be unworked, could it not? As Sunday spilled its hours, she watched the clock with growing dread. And yet, when her husband late in the afternoon said, "Shall I put the TV back?" she heard herself answer, yes, because she had to know if it was real. She spent the last hour in Brenda's room. Brenda herself was gone, disappeared since dinner. What sort of turmoil was she going through? By 8 o'clock, by 8 o'clock, which Brenda would live in this house? Brenda's mother emptied the box of photos, which she should have put into albums long ago, onto the bed. She shuffled through the prints, searching anxiously for one in particular, one that she remembered above all others. She found it. She laughed aloud as her own memory precisely matched the moment captured by the camera. Brenda, on the morning of her 4th birthday, standing on the front sidewalk in her yellow pajamas, belting out happy birthday to herself, in case any of the neighbors cared to give her a present. She laughed again and kissed the photograph. Dopey from exhaustion, she forced herself to stay awake. She dare not lie on the bed. She touched her daughter's clothes, her things, the Kermit doll on the closet door. She paced. She looked at the photograph. Wherever she turned, she could feel the TV, a palpable, weighted presence that funneled all the room's space into itself, like a bowling ball dropped on a bedsheet. It seemed to call, "Look at me, look at me." She discovered that she was afraid to. She went to the window. She ran her finger along the blinds. She heard music. Downstairs, her husband was playing Pavarotti. How he loved the great tenor. Now he was singing along, earnestly, comically off-key as usual. The clock said 6:59. She turned from the window. Brenda was in the room, one step inside the door. She did not seem to notice her mother. She stared at the TV, unblinkingly, as if frozen. Suddenly, she rushed across the room and almost violently punched the power button. Light scrambled across the screen, leaped to Brenda's face as an announcer's carnival voice brayed, "It's the Dennison twins!" Brenda's favorite show. Downstairs, the unlikely duo boomed an aria from Rigoletto. The look of dazed stupefaction on Brenda's face, as if she were not there, but there, chilled her mother's spirits. She had seen it so many times before, but when Brenda's hand was snapping out and plink, the picture was off, and Brenda was coming to her, straight at her, hugging her, squeezing with surprising force. "Hi, Mom," she blurted and rushed off. Moments later, there was a distinct change in the music downstairs. Pavarotti was now joined, and quickly overwhelmed, by Brenda's high-pitched bellow, every bit as off-key as her father's. "La, la, 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 la." This was followed by clapping and shouts of, "Encore! Encore!" Brenda's mother wobbled down the hallway to her own room, too tired to do anything but smile. She was fast asleep long before her daughter stopped singing. That's the end.